So what is the most forbidden dissonance when composing music? I'm going to explain what it is, and I'm also going to tell you exactly how you can safely use it when you're composing your own music. Now, I know some of you are probably asking, is there really a dissonance that's forbidden in all contexts? No, of course not. We never say never in music. There's always some kind of context out there where this could be used. But I would say 99% of the time, you want to avoid this chord. But for most composers that do write in the world of tonal music, something that sounds sort of like this. This dissonance is to be avoided. And in fact, this is one of the most common mistakes that composers make, especially when they're new. So, what is this dissonance? This dissonance I'm talking about is the major triad with a suspended fourth. And the first thing that somebody is going to think when they see this in your score is they're going to ask you, oh, did you mean a major triad or a suspended fourth? They're going to assume this is some kind of mistake you made. Because this chord doesn't really follow the natural laws of harmony. The reason why this chord does not work is because it contains the fourth, which is commonly used for creating a suspended fourth type of sound. But instead of allowing the dissonance to resolve downward to the major third like it normally would, this chord already includes the major third. What this does is it creates a minor second dissonance, but that's not the only reason. You see, the basic triad notes in a C major chord, C, E, and G, they act as sort of like the bones, the foundation of the entire chord. You can add all kinds of added notes to a C major chord, but it's still going to function as some kind of C major chord because the foundation is a C, E, and a G. Now, when you add this added fourth to the C major chord, what it does is that it sort of creates this ambiguous foundation, whereas the audience and the performer are also unsure what kind of chord this is because it contains both the major triad but also the suspended fourth. In other words, you can think of this chord as being the most unnatural chord for musicians to perform. And if you have this harmony on a longer sustaining chord or on a strong beat such as a quarter note or a half note, it's really going to emphasize the clash. Because of these reasons, it's going to sound like a mistake to the musicians and the audience. And I'm not speaking about this like I've never done this myself. I've made this mistake many, many times. And that's why I'm sharing this information to newer composers so they can avoid this same mistake that so many other people make. In fact, when I was finishing up my work for band, Quiescence, I had to make sure I did not have this dissonance on the strong beats. This was because the first note of the melody of this piece, it begins on the fourth scale degree. And because the first chord was a major triad, I had to make sure the harmony did not contain the major third. So even now, I still have to watch out for this dissonance when I'm composing. Now, have I seen this chord in modern music? Yes. Rarely yes, but I have. Do I think that it works great in the context of triadic and tonal music that most of us appreciate? No, I do not think it sounds good at all. And some composers may think that they're being artistic by using this harmony in their pieces, but really it just makes their works sound bad. So I already mentioned that this harmony does not work well when you use it on, let's say, a quarter note or a half note, especially if it's on a strong beat. But does this mean there's no ways that you can use this harmony? No, there actually are some very easy ways that you can safely use this dissonance. So let's look at some of them. If this dissonance is used instead as a passing tone in eighth notes, then it can actually work just fine. Having this dissonance be there for just a short split second of time like this is not going to draw a lot of attention. This is actually a very common way of using this dissonance, and it sounds fine. Another way that this harmony can be used is by using an inversion of the chord. If you take the F and then place it in the bass, this completely changes the sound of the chord. And also, this can actually change the function of the chord, meaning that it may not actually still be a C major chord with an added fourth. You can instead think of this as an F major seventh chord with an added ninth. And if you listen to this chord, does it sound familiar? Any movies from 30 years ago that come to mind? If you guessed Superman, you are correct. John Williams famously used a similar chord in the Superman theme. In that case, it's an F major seventh with an added 11th and ninth. There are also some contexts in which a composer might use this harmony in more dissonant contemporary styles where there's lots of layers and textures. The bottom line is, only write this if you really want this sound. And as a person who sang in various choir ensembles, I can just tell you that singers are going to have a really hard time with this dissonance because they're going to be confused. They're not used to this type of harmony. They're used to either a suspended fourth or a major triad, but not both at the same time. Instrumentalists may have an easier time with this harmony because they don't have to sing it, but again, I would still use caution and only write this harmony if that's what you really want. And most of the time, 99% of the time, it's probably not what you really want. Now, why does this not happen with the minor triadic version? This doesn't happen with the minor triadic version because if you have a C, E flat, and G, and then you add the F as an added fourth, it doesn't clash in the same way. There's a major second between the E flat and the F, and that allows it to be a much softer dissonance while not disrupting the foundation or the bones of the chord. In fact, it's a very common chord that you'll come across in jazz especially and other contexts of music. Now, if we had, for example, a C major chord, and if we raise that fourth to an F sharp, does this still affect the foundation of the chord? No, the third is very clearly established and is not disrupted by this dissonance. This is a much easier dissonance to use, but again, at its foundation, people are still going to be able to hear that this is a C major triad. So if you add this F natural to a C major triad, it's going to make it so that people cannot tell very clearly that this is a C major chord. Because, again, this dissonance is just disturbing the chord too much in a way that undermines the basic skeleton of the C major triad. So, in other words, this chord is really only going to be used with more advanced musicians, but honestly, even then, I don't think it really works all that well if we're being honest with ourselves. It just ends up sounding awkward. I am composer Britt Andrew Burns. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you again soon.